change and are all part of this movement is just such an honor. And I think to contribute just the smallest amount I can to that movement, it really speaks a lot to me. And I hope people who are watching this can get the most of the can out of this to see how this Gen Z movement is coming, and the change that we see is tangible, and it's just coming in the next couple of years.
Jody, what is on your mind right now? And it doesn't have to be your venture, but like what's really occupying your brain power, if you will?
Action. I want to take action. I see in Capitol Hill, I feel like there's a sense of gridlock and inaction. And I feel like personally, and I can definitely tell from the women on this call, there's this absolute drive to just do something, get something out, take action immediately.
Kristen, what about you? You have a venture. We'll get to the ventures in a few minutes. There's, of course, been a lot of news. What are you thinking about every day? Is it money? Is it college? Is it Black Lives Matters? Is it a combination? We're talking to employers and leaders throughout America who want to know, what is Gen Z thinking about right now?
Right, of course. So I think, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement being so prevalent right now, but always when there are Black lives in your workplace, in your classrooms, the importance of putting those Black lives, Black voices, those voices of color to the forefront is always at the front of my own mind. I think also, like Jody, I'm always thinking about action. And I think right now, what's in my head a lot of the time is progress. We've heard a lot about how systems are not broken, they just weren't created for everyone. And I think that idea is really in my head, that at this point, I'm thinking, how is Gen Z going to build these systems? And obviously, because of everyone on this call, we're building them pretty right.
Anika, what about you? And is college one of the issues top of mind for you, or is it anything else?
Yeah, so I think the main issue, like Kristen said, is the Black Lives Matter movement right now. But I also think the coronavirus is playing such a big part in our lives right now, especially as we see some of our peers not really following the protocol. And like Jody said, we want to take action and we want to progress as a society. So for me right now, my main goal is to ensure that we're all doing our part to progress as a society. And yeah, college is something that's been on my mind a lot because I'm starting my college applications, and you know, knowing that the coronavirus does play a part in college is something that's really important to me.
Are you worried about it? Are you worried, can you be on the same schedule? Is it gonna take you potentially longer because of the virus and everything else?
Yeah, so I think there is a little bit of worry in that sense because the virus is so unpredictable. Like if you asked me in March when we first went into quarantine and social distancing, I would have told you that it'll probably last at most a month, but here we are multiple months out. And definitely with the college admissions right now, we see a lot of schools taking change and going test optional, and knowing that, you know, maybe something that I could have taken like the ACT or the SAT to help my college application might not be there anymore. But I think as Gen Z, it's very important for us to realize that we have the opportunity to be flexible and to think outside the box and not be too constrained to a certain stereotype or certain situation like other generations might have had.
You've all started ventures. Let's I guess start with sharing briefly about your ventures, and we'll start with Jody, who was in the inaugural Girls with Impact program about 4 years ago, which is a mini MBA delivered live online. I happen to run that, CEO of Girls with Impact. Jody, tell us briefly about your venture and
Yeah.
why it was that venture.
Absolutely. So we're going to rewind back to 2016 for this one. I was going to high school in Greenwich, Connecticut. Outside of New York, we had an immigrant population, and I happened to be friends with a lot of individuals who were American citizens, but had parents or guardians that were undocumented. And because of the presidential administration change, the rhetoric around immigration altered drastically. I had friends of mine who just had to find out that their parents were undocumented because now the risk is much greater that they will be detained. And they were dealing with high school stress, test scores, all of these mundane issues, while also coming to the fact that their parents could suddenly be detained, and what happens with their education, their guardianship, every single question raised from that. So at the time, I was a sophomore. I had no idea how to help this situation at all. And so I met with Jen. I figured that with Girls with Impact, this mini MBA, I could take this issue, apply business skills to it, and make it kind of go viral. Yeah, so that's my website. I spent about a year researching what would happen if a child's parents are undocumented and they're detained, and what happens with their guardianship, how do they continue their education, what online options are available. And Jennifer helped me with a press release. It was incredibly formal. I was calling news outlet after news outlet. An Associated Press article picked up my story and it went international. New York Times, Washington Post. It reached the people I needed it to reach.
The main thing is that you started from hearing the experience from your peers. You
Yes.
started an information website for youth by youth about deportation. Super timely, obviously.
Yes.
Let's go to Raina. Raina, you're from Connecticut. Tell us about your venture and why.
Sure. So my venture was to become a public speaking coach. And the reason I started this was because as a 17-year-old woman of color who's also a minority in a mainly white population town, I've always learned I've come to learn how important it is to speak your voice, speak your opinion, and take a stance and communicate your ideas effectively. Because as Gen Z, I think that is the crux of what we're trying to learn. And all these movements, there's this pattern where we're seeing where people are trying to communicate their ideas effectively. Some are failing and some are succeeding. And that's what I'm trying to do with my public speaking coach. So after I launched this with Girls with Impact, who I think I so would not be here without them. They've helped me launch this program. Since Girls with Impact, I've given presentations to schools all over the country. I've given presentations to colleges, high schools, international places, and I now help mentor people, over 100 people one-on-one, just with increasing their confidence in being able to communicate their ideas effectively. And it's told that the public speaking is a second skill that people want to improve at right after their health goals. And I thought that was shocking to me, that in a society now that values how to speak your mind. So especially in the Gen Z era, I've learned that for me to be able to pass that skill on to others, to hopefully contribute to a movement or something bigger than themselves, that's what Girls with Impact has allowed me to do. And I wouldn't really be here without them.
And Kristen, let's go to you now. You had a passion for reading from when you were very young, and that led you to create something that's actually very timely. Well, all of this is so timely, but particularly with the focus on Black Lives Matters and diversity. And, it's a topic that is occupying the minds of all CEOs and chief marketing officers right now, because it really comes down to their brand, right? But let's hear a little bit about your venture, what it is briefly, and then we'll go back to Anikas.
Of course. So I think to start off, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to focus on as my venture, I thought about what I know. They always tell you to write about what you know. So I decided, start a business about what you know. And what I know is that from a young age, I've always been reading books. But the characters I was reading books on never looked like me, sounded like me, or lived life experiences like mine. And I could see that pattern throughout my peers, especially within school curriculums, at-home reading lists, the books that were available to kids in my own community. And so I created Mirror Me Diversity, a platform that bridges the gap between diverse books and diverse readers hoping to read those books, aka every single person in the world. So basically what Mirror Me Diversity is a platform giving youth and those who care about youth, their educators, their parents, their guardians, the opportunity to read book lists on diverse books. Diversity including race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, all of the above, opportunities to read recommendations by youth readers themselves, and opportunities to buy those books directly through the platform, as well as being able to be given books that are donated through Mirror Me Diversity, so that kids who might not have the accessibility to get these diverse books are able to get those. So it is very timely, I think, specifically for now. Yeah.
Anika, let's go to you. Let's hear about your venture. Also super interesting. Tell us what it is briefly and why that.
Okay, so the name of my venture is DevMind VR, which is a virtual reality aid to teach individuals with developmental disabilities such as autism and Down syndrome social emotional skills, which is the ability to recognize an emotion in a social setting and react appropriately. So many people with developmental disabilities lack the ability to recognize emotions in social settings, so they usually turn to behavioral specialists. But these behavioral specialists tend to provide treatments that are really expensive and cost upwards of $47,000 annually, which is not affordable for many families. And I saw this occur with one of my friends. I go to a low-funded small high school in California, and my school couldn't always provide resources for her. So she was forced to move to another school in order to get these resources, which terminated all of her relationships and was really hard on her. So I saw what happened with her and I wanted to create a solution. So I teamed up with a local university, the University of California, Santa Cruz, and together we made an aid to help these individuals.
Wow. Unbelievable, right? How important, now that you all have an understanding of entrepreneurship, and Jody, I'm going to go to you because Jody is the one out of all of you who's actually in college. So she's been out there. Now that you've had a taste even more so of the real world, how important are the skills of entrepreneurship, do you think, for Gen Z?
Crucial, absolutely crucial. Entrepreneurship is everything. And I think what we're seeing in Gen Z is this drive to be an activist in potentially unorthodox ways. And I think entrepreneurship is actually the key to that. You don't have to be, up on Shark Tank to be an entrepreneur. You start a business and maybe it's something that's impactful. My college has an entire program where you just have a startup incubator where you make a business that also makes a difference. It's the biggest trend that we're seeing in higher educations of higher institutions. And I truly think that entrepreneurship is the key to solving so many of the problems that Gen Z cares about.
Kristen, what about, we'll jump to you and then I'll come back to the other two ladies on another question. Kristen, how important is entrepreneurship, do you think, in driving your future success now?
Right, so right now I'm 17. I'm just going into the college process as well. So I think right now where I am in terms of life with everything happening with current events, part of entrepreneurship is giving you the tools to make change tangible, to make the progress that you want to make the future that you want to see for your own grandkids, for your own kids, for yourself in the future, tangible and something that you can actually put into a document, put onto your business venture platform and present to others. So at least for me, as I'm aging in this world, almost ready to vote, the fact that you have the tools to be able to say, here's what's wrong with the world. Here's my social entrepreneurship project solving that. And here's how we're going to take a group, a collective group, and access that ability to change it. That's what entrepreneurship is to me. It's that tool that combines a group of people, us all here today, for a common goal of social change. And that's what social entrepreneurship is.
Raina and Anika, should schools be doing a better job now that you've had this mini MBA and you're working on these ventures, looking back, what's your opinion of how schools are educating this generation?
So I would say that I think there's definitely a big shift in the way that the school curriculum is taught, especially in high school and higher education systems, like Jody said. But I still think for a great period of time that shift is coming, but very gradually. I found that after Girls with Impact, there was so much that I was missing that really wasn't taught in a traditional school educational system. And without this exposure, I would never even have gotten, it would never even have crossed my mind that I could build something of my own, that I can call myself a CEO, and that gives me power. And that's not taught in a traditional school education system. It's almost like X, Y, Z, do this, do that, and here's the outcome. And I feel like since entrepreneurship is such an unconventional approach to take to life, it's so out of the norm that it doesn't really come across in people's minds. And that's what the education is supposed to do, is to teach you the various ways and you could succeed at life and in many career opportunities, all the different things that you can take advantage of to help you excel in whatever skill you're good at. And I think although there is a gradual change, I still think that schools should integrate more unconventional ways of teaching more into the school curriculum, because I think it's given me such a great exposure and such a great power to say, I'm a CEO and look what I've done, look where I was and look where I've came. But I fear that so many students, so many children deserve to have the same feeling that I've felt, but don't necessarily, because the school educational system is taking a very gradual change at this process.
And I want to actually recognize some of the funders who helped make that programming possible, from US Bank to Eversource Energy, Fairfield County's Community Foundation. And the more companies that we have who join this, the more we can reach those low and moderate income girls. Anika, anything that you want to share your view of the school system, particularly with the whole COVID shift, about what you think really should change, or what you as a Gen Zer would like to see happen?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with what Raina said. I think our schools don't really give us the opportunity to think outside the box and explore, because you never really see a business class taught in high schools, or like a class that Girls with Impact gave me. You see classes that are traditional: chemistry, biology, math, English, where you just learn something for the sake of taking a test at the end and simply forget it. And I think our education should shift from that, and instead should encourage projects and encourage us to be aware of our surroundings and how we can make a difference on the world. And I was lucky enough to have a teacher who really supported me with my venture in the very beginning and pushed me to take action and to do the research I was doing and do Girls with Impact. So I think we need more teachers like that, and for other generations and adults to really believe in us and believe that we can make a change, because we are the future and we are capable of doing it.
Yes. You know, one of the things that has gotten a lot of attention over a long time is confidence. And, you know, the fact that young women ages 8 to 13 take a big hit in confidence. And I've heard that with, you know, many of the students, and sometimes it's the subject of their venture. When I see you girls, to me, it just proves that you really can tackle that issue. But kind of to hit on what you said, Anika, you learn by doing and you build by doing. How important has that training or experience been in your mindset, and how will that carry you forward? And Anika, we'll briefly start with you and then we'll go around the room.
Yeah, so for me, after Girls with Impact, my confidence rose astronomically. It really showed me that I have the ability to take something and make it possible. And I think, like you said, young teenage girls really experience hits in their confidence, and programs like this show them that they really can do something. They are able to go out there and make change. And I think if we have more people like yourself and our Girls with Impact coaches and the other ladies in this call today who really are supporting one another and really help one another, I think this will help girls who want to make a change really take that first step and make a change.
Jody, did you want to add to that? And then after that, Kristen, I'm going to ask you what you think our CEOs should be doing, because they've been talking for decades about having more women at the top. There are groups like the 30% Club that are supposedly to increase diversity on boards and at the top of corporate America. And the fact is the needle hasn't been moved yet. So Kristen, well, I'll come to you on that. Jody, what about tackling the confidence issue? You know, do you feel like it really can be tackled?
Yeah, I think, you know, as young women, we aren't born with self-esteem issues. We're taught these issues. And unfortunately, we have to unteach ourselves these issues. It's not like it's just integral to us. And I think one of the biggest things to, you know, fix that mentality is representation. The people on this call, making sure that you're, you know, purposely supporting businesses that are women-owned, that you recognize, you know, the struggle to climb up that ladder as a woman. That representation means so much. And being able to not only say, wow, that is a woman CEO, and then 3 years later say, huh, I'm a woman CEO, is the biggest paradigm shift and the biggest change maker in my life, especially going into something as trivial as politics. As an entrepreneur, I was hit pretty hard, but I could not be more happy as to where I am now and how much it's taught me.
Kristen, so given that backdrop, what do you think CEOs should be doing? Do you any thoughts on that? Should they be investing more? And you know, they're all recruiting, but they're mostly recruiting from colleges. They can be changing some of their hiring practices. They can make sure that, you know, when it comes bonus time, that it's not just, for example, white males getting the bigger paychecks. They can look at some of those numbers. And you know, you guys have not really been in the work world yet, so I'm not expecting that. But just any thoughts that you do think CEOs should be doing, keeping in mind that they got to run a business and they need to deliver shareholder value?
Right. I think it's really important that, especially during this time where we are realizing that Black and Indigenous voices, people of color in general, and also women of color in general, are being brought to the forefront, that businesses and CEOs in charge of those businesses should try to shift away from the idea of diversity and inclusion to equitable ideas and equity in general. Equity is the idea that instead of saying you'll have a certain percentage of women on your team, of women of color, of Black men on your team, that you will actively and intentionally mold spaces that are meant for people of varying backgrounds and experiences in life. What that means is, yes, you're paying people equally based on the work they do and not based on the looks that they appear to you as. It means that you are actively creating policies that support women, so that women not only are employed by your company, but come back. Retention rates are a really important thing involved in both colleges and universities, high schools, as well as in businesses. Diversity means absolutely nothing if your employees are not coming back. So policies need to be created. Policies need to be followed. And you need to actively talk with your diverse employees and members of your community to make sure that those policies are helping them themselves. You can't have a room full of white cisgender men determining how women in your company are going to benefit. It simply won't work out for you. So I think in general, it just always has to be focused on the equitable lens and focus on the people who are actively being oppressed in society, so that in your own version of society, in your own little bubble of a business, they are able to spread their wings and impact your business just as well as they can the world.
You know, it's interesting that it's human nature to hire people we know and who look like us, right? And that's a real challenge. I think that's where I think some of the struggle is, because it's human nature, right? And one of the areas where we really see this impact is on the capital raising side. So for all of you who want to start your companies and raise money, there's about 70 to 80 billion a year that goes out to young companies, and only 2% of them go to women-founded companies. When you think about the workplace, and again, I know some of you really haven't quite had this experience, but you know, if you're taking your first jobs, because we hear from employers, you know, they really want to be the employer of choice for Gen Z. So I want to go around the room and give you a moment to think about that. But what would be important to you? Like, what would be the maybe top one or two things? It could be a sense of purpose. It could be geographically that it's not a long commute. It could be the compensation. It could be that the mentors, I'm again, just giving you some ideas to start to think about. It could be the nature of the work. And by the way, you know, one criticism that I do hear from, you know, young folks is that, you know, they're not willing to do the minutia work, which a lot of us did have to do growing up. It's just part of life. I still do minutia work all day long. But what are those things that are important to you if somebody's handing you a job offer and you're now really thinking about it? What's important to you? And I think, Jody, we'll start with you again because you've been a little bit closer, and then we'll go around the room. Jody, what 1 or 2 or 3 things are important to you?
Yeah, so I'm actually beginning, you know, looking into internships and whatnot, starting early. And what I truly care about and what I've come to realize is the power, the communal power that these corporations have, these bigger companies. And what I care about is that they're doing something good with this, whether that's internally, like Kristen mentioned, those retention rates, making spaces, not just filling quotas, and having larger, more external impacts. Are you donating to charities? What are your employees doing in their free time? I see this sense of companies moving toward that way where their economics and their financials also match their morals and political values. But I also see companies that are greenwashing, externally acting like they have this sense of moral purpose. But in reality, once you're in that company, and I faced this, it's all for show. And that to me is the biggest turnoff from any internship or any job I've ever held. If I go in there feeling that I will have a sense of purpose, that I will be affecting my community, and it's completely fake once you're inside that company.
Raina, any opinion about what's important to you? So they're handing you the offer, you know, everything's been hunky-dory, everybody's impressed by you. What matters?
Sure. So I think the first thing is when someone tells me that they're accepting me into their company, is to make sure that they're accepting me because of me, not because, like Jody said, not because they're trying to fill a quota because I'm a woman, because of my values, but because of the value that I'm going to bring to the company. And I think what sometimes annoys me these days is that many people are trying to fill quotas. Many people are trying to say this percentage of a company is trying to be Hispanic or woman or whatever, people of minority. And I want to make sure that when I get hired by a company, no matter how big or small, that they're hiring me because of my potential and because of my values that I'm going to bring to the table. And I think I think a lot of the times it shouldn't just be for a show purpose, that look at our percentages, they try to boast the socioeconomic differences between their employees and their employers. And it's do it because of your moral values, because you know that this is right, to give everyone, like Kristen said, equal equity, equal opportunity. And I think the biggest thing for me is to make sure that I've been accepted because of my value, because of my experiences that I'm bringing to the company, how I'm going to make the company succeed in the long term, as opposed to me just trying to fill a quota for the amount of woman minority percentages that should fill the company. That wouldn't make sense to me.
Do you still want to know about those numbers though?
I would definitely want to know about those numbers so I know that there has been given equal opportunity and equal equity to all women. So I think that's an interesting question, because the reason I would want to know is to realize that there are women like me. I think the biggest thing about representation is it's hard to be someone where you cannot see someone like you who is also up there. For example, there are 5% of Fortune 500 women CEOs. How can I say that I want to be a Fortune 500 CEO woman if the percentage of amount of women who are up there are so little? And the reason I would want to know that is to know that there are people like me who have been hired by their value, by the opportunity that they bring to their table, and I can one day be there too. So that's the reason I would want to know that.
Right. Anika.
Yeah, so for me, something that I agree with everything Jody and Raina said, but something that is also really important to me is the support that you receive in a company and the collaboration between the employers. Because I think right now we see that there's sometimes a lot of competition between employers, especially in more business fields like finance, and everyone's trying to compete with one another. But for me, I really want to see people working together and working to support each other, not bring them down, because I think if we want to progress as a society, we all really need to help each other instead of trying to bring each other down. And especially in times like right now, we've seen how helping other people, especially those who don't look like us or those who we want to help, just because those are our morals, not because we feel like we have to. That's really important. And I think all companies should be taking steps towards doing that, like Raina said.
Really important point. Yeah, being even more specific about not tearing each other down. So easily can happen. Kristen, what are your 1 or 2 or 3 things?
I can give you 3 things right off the bat because I am actually doing a remote internship now and have been looking for a job. So I think first, geography, benefits, and culture. Geography, I live in the city, I live in New York City. And I think especially with COVID-19 and everything having to be so cautious about taking public transportation, the increase in the influx of people taking public transportation, especially with COVID-19, and a lot of essential workers being people who are more susceptible to the disease. I think geography is a really important thing for taking a job and for an internship of any kind. So for me, it'd be really nice if I can walk there since I'm in the city. It might even be better if I can take a short train ride or bus ride. I think the second thing, benefits. We are Gen Z, so we're younger and we haven't really thought too long term about too many things. At least I could speak for myself. But I think we're starting to become more aware of the fact that our parents are living the effects of taking jobs when they were younger that didn't guarantee certain benefits. That we sort of have to be a little bit more aware of what health benefits are we getting, especially with the coronavirus happening. What benefits are you receiving and what guarantees you're receiving from your company in terms of maybe professional development stipends and things like that. That maybe that's how you're supporting the women in your business. Maybe because women are less likely to be guaranteed financial literacy classes in high school or in college. Maybe that's a professional development plan that you give to your women employees. And then the third thing, culture. I think like what everyone said on here, the culture of your company in itself should be beneficial to me as a person and not just as an employee. The culture has to be supportive of my work and it has to be supportive of the idea and the fact that I am a human being working here and that above all else, I'm also contributing to your company. So there should be an environment where women are not degraded by the men in the company. There should be an environment where cisgendered people are also supporting transgender individuals. And there should be an environment where people of color and non-people of color are able to combine in their collective work and work towards a future of a company that's beneficial for all.
I want to bring up something that one of you said yesterday, and I think it might have been Jody, about a comment that somebody made that, yeah, being an entrepreneur as a woman, the hormones kick in and then you'll be off having babies, something along those lines. On the flip side, you're now CEOs, or you may really be in the real, world after you finish college, or you may be in an executive position, whatever it is, it'll be demanding and you'll be leading the way. How do you think, is that a valid concern? Do you think that employers should have about, the transition of having to fill the gap if somebody does leave for babies, children, or how do you think that should be addressed if you have any opinions about that? Anybody want to chime in?
I would love to jump on this topic, actually. So my biggest idea on this topic is that it's not the company's place. They should provide the benefits of maternity leave, paid maternity leave, and they should not make it different, because actually something that I've noticed in a particular company that I was doing a case study on in college, the percentage of the length of maternity leave for women of color versus white women was incredibly disproportionate. And I think that's a major issue that no one is talking about. And I think another thing is that companies should never be saying that you are a mother and we will give you all this maternity leave, because truthfully, Maybe that woman does not want to be a mother. Maybe she will never take maternity leave. But if she does decide to, there should be equitable policies for maternity leave that are gracious and allow her to support her child and support herself during that time period. But all in all, it is not the company's place to argue whether or not this woman is going to be a mother. If she chooses to, they should support her, and they should do so in an equitable fashion.
Mm-hmm. And any comments on any of you? So again, the comment I heard was, let's just take an investor who's investing $5 million in your venture, and maybe in the back of his head is thinking, okay, well, is she gonna end up, getting pregnant, and can she be focused on it because, it's serious money. What do you think are the fair issues to be thinking about around that topic, whether it's, again, back in the workplace or, and again, I'm just going back to that comment that, the view that, oh yeah, you want to be an entrepreneur. Sure. You're that soon enough, the hormones are going to kick in. Any of you have any other thoughts?
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So like Jody said, like, I don't believe it's any person's place to say that, no, you cannot be an entrepreneur because you're a woman. Because I think when it comes down to it, and when it comes down to making a change, which is what entrepreneurs do, it is about your passion and how much you truly believe in the issue you're trying to solve. And your gender has nothing to do with that. In fact, maybe your gender might play a role in that. Like, for example, if you want to create an organization to support women, if you're a woman, then you have more passion for that because you can understand that. So I think if others are trying to take that away from us, that is unfair and should not be the focus. The focus of investors when they're trying to invest in our companies is to see our passion and see what we're trying to do in the world, and then that's more important.
Raina.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think when we discuss maternity leaves in the workplace, it's always seen as the woman is going through, the company's at a disadvantage and the woman's at a disadvantage. I think people, I don't know why, I feel like some people underestimate the power of women way too much. And I think after pregnancy, that period where, it's such a beautiful concept where a woman literally has a live baby in her own body. And how much strength does that give you? That gives you so much strength. And for an investor to have those thoughts that maybe, she's going through those hormones, maybe she doesn't have the power to do it, she'll be tired. I think you should see that as an advantage. like, yeah, she's having a kid and she's going to be 10 times stronger when she comes out. And that's the way you should view it. That, like, I think to give birth is such a magical thing, and so much struggle and so much pain you have to go through. And to see that as a disadvantage, both for the woman and for the workplace, is a complete misunderstatement. That it gives you power and it gives you strength. You come out so much stronger. So this entire discussion about maternity in the workplace and how the woman and the employer itself are at a disadvantage, no, that's not true. The woman, when coming back, when given all the, like Jody said, and like Anika and Kristen said, they should be given all the advantages. Nothing should be taken away from them in that period that they're working from home or that they're on the maternity leave, because the employer should know that when they come back, she'll be giving her 110%, even more than she did before, because she's 10 times stronger.
Well, some of you know my own chief operating officer who recently had a baby, and I'll tell you, when we learned that she was pregnant, the thought that it actually went through, because she's such an asset to us, is this is job security. She's not going anywhere for a while because she's just not going to go look for another job. And the good thing is she loves what she does here. Let me close up by hearing from you guys. Anything that you're hearing from just your friends, like what are other Gen Zers thinking about or talking about? Is there like one kind of salient point or insight or trend or anything that you're seeing? Anybody? Jody, you want to go? Let's go back around the room.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take it back to what I was talking about with action. I think in light of 2020 as a whole, one of the most polarized and action engulfed years that I've ever lived through, I'm seeing so many of my peers wake up to the fact that racism is alive and well. There are people who truly don't care if other people get sick. They refuse to change their lifestyles. There is this sense of awakening right now to so much happening. And I can tell people are frustrated. They're sitting at home. They have no idea what to do or how to contribute to this. They're just educating themselves. And I think coming out of this pandemic, when people begin to emerge, you're going to see an incredibly educated and aware generation that has just went through this period of enlightenment and is so ready to take action. That, I think, is what you're going to see, and that is 110% my prediction.
Kristen, we'll go to you. You're nodding.
Yeah, I think just what Jody said about what you're going to 100% see, it's sort of like an oncoming storm. You're just expecting it and you don't know what's going to happen. I think what I'm seeing a lot of within my own friends and my own community at school, in my neighborhood, I think one of the things I'm seeing is the idea that within the group of people of color, there's a lot of complexity in the identities that are within the general group of people of color. And as a light-skinned person of color, what I'm experiencing, what I'm having discussions about are the tough conversations about where privilege lies, where you live, your class, the color of your skin, colorism in general is such a prevalent thing in the community of color. So I think that's something that's being discussed more. There's also the idea of there being transphobia and homophobia in general communities, you know, around the world, specifically within the communities of color. I think also the history is told. That's something that's being really discussed right now, especially at school, advocating for more diverse histories to be taught, told, explored, and really dug out of the graves that we've put them in before. And the last thing, I think it wouldn't be a Gen Z conversation if we didn't bring up climate activism. I feel like that just labels a big label on our whole generation. And part of that is because we have never seen a society, a current present state without climate change. And that goes the same with terrorism too. I've never seen a world without 9/11. I've never seen a world without global warming. And it's not that we're so used to those things. It's sort of the complete opposite. We're so aware that we've had to live with this our entire lives, that we're desperate for a change. And I don't think climate change and climate activism is going absolutely anywhere. If anything, it's building up like that storm.
Well, I know that I am so grateful that you guys, because we do need change on so many of these fronts. Raina, how about you? What are you hearing or picking up from your fellow Gen Zers?
Sure. So I would like to answer this with a story that I think I told these girls yesterday, was how the first time when I think I was 14 years old, when I was going to give my first presentation to a group of disadvantaged and underprivileged girls. And there were hundreds of them, and I had no idea that so many girls were going to be there. And I was shaking and I was scared, and you could hear it in my voice. And my brother, who was, I think, 9 years old at the time, said, "Stop being so selfish." I don't think this is what he meant, but this is what I took out of it, that, yeah, you know what, stop being so selfish, because this isn't about you. It's about all those women who haven't had a voice for so long, and you're that voice. So use the platform that you have, put aside down your whatever, the fact that you're scared to go up to talk to a group of women. I mean, go do it, because once again, it's not about you. Stop being selfish. And I think that's what's happening now, that people are putting aside their differences. They're putting aside all the small, stupid stuff that we've been building up for so long, that, oh, we're different because of X, Y, Z. It just, especially in Generation Z, it's all being gone. And I feel like most people are holding hands and saying, look, there's a change and it's coming, and be ready for it. And they're doing it for the greater good. It's not for a selfish purpose, but look, our children are going to see this, our grandchildren are going to see this, and this is for them, and this is for the greater good. And that's a trend that I've been seeing in Generation Z, and I'm so happy for it, because I feel like, I mean, even looking at these group of women, Jody, Anika, Kristen, like, just being on a call with these women makes me so empowered. And this is just a few representation of the thousands of women that are out there, thousands of people, underprivileged women, people of color who are out there marching on the streets, fighting for equality and equity. And that to me is, I think, I've never been so happy to be part of this Generation Z movement.
Great. And Anika.
Yeah, so like Jody said, I think that Gen Z is awake and Gen Z is ready. Gen Z wants to have a voice and they've realized that they can and they can make a change. So I think right now we need to work together and really push forward and realize, like Raina said, it is not just about us. It is about everyone else in our community. And if we're going to be the ones to stop it or to move something forward, then we need to take action. And I've really seen Gen Z do that, and Gen Z really supporting one another. Like during the coronavirus and social distancing and all that, I've seen so many people reach out to people who they would never talk to before, just because they want to support someone and be there for someone, or make a friend with someone who they would never have been friends with before. And I think that the coronavirus really helped us understand that we are all in this together. Like, we can make change if we work together. And with Gen Z realizing this, I think there's nothing anyone can do to stop us, and we will make a difference in the world.
Ladies, I want to thank you for a fantastic conversation. Thank you for joining the Gen Z Project, Jody, Raina, Anika, and Kristen. Coming up next week on LinkedIn Live, same show, same time at 12 noon on Thursdays, will be Marion Taylor with the Gap Year Association. We're going to talk about, should you take a gap year? How do you make the most of it? What are some pitfalls to be mindful of? With that, tune in at 12 noon next Thursday. I'm Jennifer Openshaw. Thanks so much for joining.